Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Matney with Nebraska Realty. Welcome to the live stream. If you can hear me okay, or if there's anybody out there, please let me know in the chat that you can hear the sound okay. And then what I thought I would do today is talk about homeowners insurance. It's been in the news lately. It's been a really hot topic, and premiums are going up. People are being canceled. And of course, you got the wildfires in California. So what I wanted to do is bring in a professional to answer some questions about the homeowner insurance process. And my guest today is Chelsae Schaefer with NR Insurance. And Chelsae has a background with being in real estate sales and an insurance background. So I thought it would be great to get her perspective on the homeowners insurance. So let's bring in Chelsae to the program to answer some questions. All right. Hey, Chelsae, how you doing?
Hey, David, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, thanks for being on the program today. And then what I thought I would do is just simply ask you some questions and then see how things go and take it from there. And meanwhile, if anybody else has any questions, they can pop that into the chat. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I'm excited.
All right. Terrific. Well, Chelsae, a lot of folks that tune into the channel are from out of state and are relocating to Nebraska, and they hear about our the price of our homes are very affordable. And then I tell them, hey, you got to be sure to check the insurance. Can you kind of share why insurance in Nebraska tends to be a little bit higher than you see in other parts of the country?
Yeah. Our geographical location, although we are in the middle of the United States and we're kind of tucked in away from any of the coastal issues, we do have our own set of unpredictable weather problems, mainly tornadoes. And here in the Omaha metro, as you know, we struggled with that quite a bit last spring. That's a very unpredictable weather pattern. And so it's hard to know. We don't get preparation. It just kind of happens when it happens. And those losses are pretty extreme in some cases. Another unpredictable weather issue that we run into quite a bit is wind and hail. We get those straight line winds that are almost as bad as tornadoes, and that can be a much wider broad of damage when those come through. Mm-hmm. And then the hail, that's unpredictable, and it can just absolutely ruin, roofs and things of that nature. So
exactly.
Those are some of our bigger struggles, and it really affects premiums, unfortunately.
Okay. Now, a little bit deeper about the roof issue, because it seems like now the age of the roof is a big deal for folks. So can you talk a little bit about the age of the roof and also, inspections of the roof and that sort of thing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, roofs have been a really large topic for us, especially in this last year. We had a handful of really bad hailstorms that came through and a lot of claims that were submitted for those. So that kind of hurts the insurance carriers a little bit. And unfortunately, that's what insurance is. It's us all taking on the responsibility of these damages and helping each other out. And that's what our rates are, right? It's all of us pitching in to help out with that. But so with the roof age, a lot of insurance carriers will change your policy from a full replacement cost coverage to an actual cash value coverage at a certain age. So it depends on the carriers. We'll see 5 years, 10 years is pretty common for your coverage to drop from full coverage to an actual cash value coverage. That really just means that the insurance carrier, when they go to pay out the claim, they're going to pay it out at a depreciated value. So for instance, you've got a 10, 15-year-old roof. Instead of the carrier paying 100% of what it would cost to replace it minus your deductible, they would pay, 50 or 60%, whatever their policy is minus your deductible.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Because I wanted to explain that to folks about actual cash value. So that's good. And then, hey, it looks like we do have a question from the chat.
Okay.
Ben, he says, do you do inspections on homes before a buyer buys a new home here in Omaha? That's a good question.
That is a great question. So as far as on the real estate side, that is the buyer's discretion. So that home inspection would cover interior items and exterior items, and that would be used then to negotiate with the seller what you would like for them to cover before you move in. And then on the insurance side, The carriers will issue these exterior inspections. They'll just send somebody out to your property within 30 days. Not a lot of times, unfortunately, do they give you notice of when that person will be out there. So just expect that you're going to have someone out there. Me personally, I had just switched my homeowner's insurance this past spring, and they sent someone out, and they actually had a drone, and they were walking around my yard, and it scared me a little bit. But thankfully, I knew, hey, my insurance company, I just got a new company. They're just coming out to check and make sure the roof is the age that I said it was, that I have a fence around my property like I did. If you have a pool, they're looking for a fence around your pool. Same with the trampoline. They're looking for the nets. They're looking for the fence. And then another thing that I didn't really know was common until I was in insurance is they're also looking for your pets, right? So if you've got, like a breed, like a pit bull or a Rottweiler or something that you didn't disclose during your application process, they're looking for things like that as well.
Gotcha. And then what about on a side note there, what about pools? How do they approach pools on that?
Yeah, so they're looking for safety features around the pool. They're looking for ladders to get in, fences around the pool, fence around your yard, things of that nature. And then each carrier has their different little quirks on exactly what they're looking for. So it's important to ask your insurance agent when you do choose a carrier.
Okay. What do you see as like something that people might think there is coverage for, but it's typically not covered? Is there anything that catches people off guard that they think, oh, that'll be covered by insurance when it's really not?
Yes. And that actually brings me back to my very first real estate deal in Des Moines. I sold a cute little 1-bed, 1-bath house in Beaverdale. And the seller, the buyers did a sewer line inspection, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm a huge fan of that. Yeah.
They found that it was Orangeburg, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's kind of like a particle board. It's not a very good material that they were using frequently when they put them in. And so they wanted that replaced from the home to the main. Yep. And that is the homeowner's responsibility, not the city's, and not your insurance. Homeowners insurance doesn't always automatically cover that. That is an endorsement that you need to select. And so that is one that's not typically covered. And that is kind of our agency's standard of practice to add that coverage. The only way we'll remove that is if the homeowner or the insured requests that be removed. And we'll make sure we document that because we want to make sure our people are fully insured for those worst case scenarios that do happen.
Now, you say you guys automatically do that, but what if they didn't have that coverage? How much would it cost to add that to?
Yeah, so that's all circumstantial. There's not really like a set amount on that. It depends on the carrier. It depends on the area. It depends on their claims history and their personal like credit history. So that is on a very individual basis. It is a very good question though, when you are getting quoted to ask. That along with, I had water backup coverage as well. So if your sump pump fails, that's also an endorsement. Another thing we automatically add. And then one more I had. Full replacement cost on your personal property. That's also an endorsement to be added, and that's another standard of ours.
Okay. And then is there, is there anything if somebody files a claim or going to file a claim, is there any kind of like tips on, filing a claim or anything you can do to kind of protect yourself as far as that goes?
Yes. So definitely going with an independent insurance broker is a great option because a lot of us, we do our own servicing, or we personally here at NR Insurance, we've got our own in-house service department. And so we aren't at 1-800 number. You're not calling your insurance carrier directly and giving them information before you're even sure if you want to do the claim. We really encourage our clients to call us whenever you have an issue, and let's review your policy, let's review your deductible, and make sure that you're making an educated decision, because we want to avoid any small claims that are going to hurt you on like your clue reports or anything like that.
Okay. You mentioned clue reports. Can you kind of go into detail as far as what a clue report is?
Yeah, they're actually pretty simple. They're basically just a report that the insurance carriers are going to use. And this is going to track any claims that you filed in the last up to 5 years is usually what they're tracking. They can do that on the individual who's applying for the policy, as well as claims that were tied to a certain property. And they just use these to avoid, people that are frequent claim, like submitting small claims, like
Gotcha.
for instance, you want to use your insurance to put in a claim for like a tree falling on your house and ruining your kitchen. You don't want to do that if you have one branch that just breaks one window. That's going to hurt your history, and it's not usually the best situation.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if they call that 800 number for their insurance, even if there's no claim paid out, that dings them, correct? That dings them as a zero paid claim, correct?
Yeah, it can hurt them in that way. And then also, the verbiage that you're using. One thing that we do see here in Nebraska a lot is wind and hail deductibles being higher than their other deductibles on their policies. So they actually have two separate deductibles. So we've seen clients with other agencies that have a $5,000 deductible and then a $10,000 wind and hail deductible. Yeah, so that's definitely something to be aware of. And you don't want to be calling the carrier and saying, hey, I had wind damage, and really it was rain damage. Or you need to be careful on how you're wording things when you're talking to the insurance carriers.
But if they call you guys, then that's not a zero. That's not like dialing the 800 number.
Right. We're a buffer zone. We're there to this is what happened. Okay, let's look at the policy. Let's see exactly what's covered. Let's see if it falls into that thing, and then we'll help you, guide you on where to put your claim in, who to talk to, and things of that nature.
Okay. Now, and I'm sure a lot of folks are thinking about this, but what about with, we see on the news with the wildfires and things like that. What kind of impact will that have on locally? Will we see our insurance rates increase, if something happens out of state?
Yeah, unfortunately we will. And that all kind of depends on if the carrier has market share in the state where the catastrophic loss was and how much of a market share they had. For instance, State Farm had about 20% of a market share in California during the wildfires. So I would assume by the end of 2025, they're going to have to take some sort of rate increase. And that's going to be all across the board in the United States because they do business everywhere.
Gotcha. Now, locally with the storms that we had last year, how much has that increased our insurance rates? Has that trickled down to us yet, or how does that? It seems like rates are going up, and that's why I wanted to have you on the program, because you come to a sales meeting and give us a brief, and I'm like, wow, that seems like when I'm giving people an estimate on costs, I got to keep bumping it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. You buffer it.
I got to increase that insurance.
Yeah. Yes, we are seeing increases. This past year has been extremely rough in that regard. We're seeing, 20 to 40% increases, and it's dependent on the carriers and what they've been writing and what they've been doing in the months leading up to those losses, things like that. But yeah.
Now, do they, and I heard this, you tell me if this is true or not, do they take into account like your credit score and that sort of thing? Does that affect your insurance rates and things like that? It does?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then what about an older home, like something that has fuses versus a breaker box? How much will somebody get dinged for something like that? Or will they just exclude coverage for that? Is there anything that you see as far as that goes?
Yeah. So I would say knob and tube is kind of a bigger issue that we see come up a lot. There's a lot of carriers that won't cover that. There are some that you can find. So it just depends. So that's another good reason to go with an insurance broker, is that we have a wide variety of carriers that we can look at. And there's going to be some that are going to be good for certain people and some that are going to be better. And so we're able to kind of get a pulse on everything and adjust what we need to do for our clients as needed.
Gotcha. And then What are some things that folks can do in terms of, is there any kind of like updates or anything they can do to kind of decrease their um, premium costs? Is there anything out there like, does the, you know, a, a 50-year roof, or hail resistant, or anything like that, or, security systems or anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually quite a bit that you can do to help your insurance rates. I would say making sure that your credit score is as high as you can have it.
Okay.
You could just overall taking care of your home goes leaps and bounds for that.
Okay.
Doing like tree trimming is huge. If you keep your trees back from your property, that's really great. Making sure that the lawn is taken care of and that there aren't debris piles or things of that nature, because that can ding you on your rates as well.
Okay.
And security systems that alert the authorities when there's a break-in or anything of that nature, that can give you a discount as well.
Okay.
So yeah, there's tons to take advantage of. I would say as far as the roofs, we're seeing discounts for class 3 and class 4 shingles. So
Okay.
if you can opt for that, or if you've got a good roofer that's willing to give you that for not too much more on the price to replace a roof, that's
Okay.
definitely something worth opting for as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Now let me ask you this. You talk about keeping trees trimmed back, and let's say somebody didn't clean their gutters, and they didn't put the downspouts in, getting things away from their house. What happens if, is that classified as a flood, or is that classified? Would that be covered by flood insurance, or would that be something that would be covered by homeowners insurance?
So water damage is always tricky. So that water backup coverage is important to have. And again, just if you're worried about water damage or anything of that nature, making sure that you have the correct endorsements in place, because water damage is one that we see carriers fighting quite a bit.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I'm like, well, that's not technically a flood, but it's kind of, yeah, I was wondering about that. And then, let's see what else I got here. What do you think what's kind of like the biggest misconception you see people have when it comes to homeowners insurance?
I would say using homeowners insurance as though it's a home warranty. And there's a big distinction there. The home warranty is meant to help you with your smaller things that are breaking, your appliances, your HVAC, things of that nature. Insurance is really supposed to be used as something to help you during a catastrophic loss, in an emergency, things of that nature. So like I said, it's just really important to avoid those small claims when possible, because it's not only going to hurt you, it's going to hurt insurance rates as a whole. And I mean, in some really bad cases where people are putting in small claims consistently, we've seen insurance carriers just drop their coverage and refuse to cover them.
Yeah. Okay. And they're required to have it for their mortgage and everything, and so then they have to really scramble to get insurance.
Yeah.
Now I've heard this from several different folks where, if there's always folks that are flipping properties and things like that. So let's say a buyer goes into a flipped home and something were to happen and there wasn't any permits pulled for that property. And I've heard that the insurance company can say, hey, we're not covering that. Is that right? Or is that something you've heard of? Or do you guys, when they do the investigation, do they look back and see if permits were pulled for a repair or a remodel?
Yeah, that is pretty situational dependent.
Okay.
We've seen it happen. It's not every single time, but it just really depends on what that claims adjuster finds and is looking for. So
Okay.
much like, sorry, I'm losing my words here. An appraisal, when you're getting an appraisal done, it depends on the appraiser. Same with claims adjusters. It just depends on who your claims adjuster is and things of that nature. And it's really beneficial if you can get your contractor, if you're getting a roof replaced, for instance, have your contractor meet the claims adjuster and have them work together on scene at that time, because it really makes things go a lot smoother if that's possible.
Gotcha. And I've heard of that before, where it's like, if you have hail damage, have it evaluated by a roofer first, and then have the roofer meet with the claims adjuster, and then they can hash it out. Is that the
Exactly how I would say play it out. That's the smartest, most prudent way to do that. And that's what we'll advise our clients when they call in to review their policies before submitting a claim.
Gotcha. Now, have we seen any companies, like with the result of the last storms that blew through, have any insurance companies pulled out of Nebraska?
Yeah, so we've actually seen some companies pausing on new business. So they're still servicing the policies that they have and taking care of the clients that they do have up until renewal. But then they will not write new business or renew some policies. For instance, we've seen that with Progressive and Nationwide. And that's not to say that they'll never write new homeowners business here in Nebraska, but just for a time while they recover some of those losses and heal a bit from damages, then they'll come and enter back into the market when they're stronger and ready to go.
Okay. Now, what about the flood insurance that we had, or the floods that we had back in 2019 and 2011? Can you talk a little bit about flood insurance and how that works?
Yeah, that was a terrible, devastating flood.
Oh, yeah.
That was so sad to drive. We were out in Des Moines at the time, and we would drive back and see that area, and it was just so devastating. But yeah, we do have flood insurance. The cost is really going to depend on the zoning. So if you're in a 100-year floodplain versus a 30-year floodplain, there's going to be a price difference there. Typically, that flood insurance is going to be structure only. And then FEMA does write flood insurance policies. Their max coverage is $250,000. So if you need that gap coverage, say you've got a $500,000 house, you're just going to have to go to a private flood insurance company to get that gap coverage for that extra $250,000, if that makes sense.
Now, and I know this is probably not the right question, but is there kind of like, can you give an example of like what that additional cost for flood insurance would be? Because, or that's something that when people are buying a home, they want to talk to their insurance provider to say, hey, to make sure it's not, because we've seen that it seemed like after those floods or Katrina, it seemed like the flood zones changed, and even in Nebraska, they're constantly changing. It's kind of like school districts; the boundary lines change. Have you seen that with our flood zones? Because I think people aren't aware, or maybe not aware, that how much flooding we get around here.
Right. Yeah. It's really important to check. It's really important to ask your real estate agent. Like David, I'm sure you're checking that when you're writing offers on properties and things of that nature. So definitely check.
I haven't talked to the insurance professional, and double check. That's part of that due diligence period to make sure that that's not a flood zone and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you're bringing that up and you're talking to them, and that's super important. But yeah, I would encourage anybody to give your insurance agency a call, give us a call. We can run it on that specific property with that specific insured and give you an estimate and a quote on what it would look like. And we can do this while you're considering writing an offer on a property or after you've written an offer on a property. So, if you're wanting to get ahead of it and see what it would look like if you did go with a property that was in a floodplain, just give us a call. We'll give you some numbers to see if it makes sense for you.
Gotcha. Now, in terms of, I've heard of this before, and that is, if you have all your belongings in the house, to take photos of the interior of the house. That way, when you have to, let's say something catastrophic will happen, you have kind of a digital trail of all your belongings. Is that a good idea? Would you suggest folks do that?
Yes, for sure. That is a fantastic idea. I would say go around your home annually, at least, if not every 6 months. And what you're going to do is you're just going to take your phone and you're going to turn it sideways, and you are just going to videotape literally everything that you own. Every room, every nook and cranny, every cabinet, open drawers. And it'll give you, that way you have a reference point, because when you're going through that catastrophe of your home burned down or you were hit by a tornado, the last thing you're going to be able to do is picture every single thing that you owned. And it just to have that basis, and then you can take that to the insurance carrier and your coverage is going to be a lot better.
Okay. Now, how often do you run into, like let's say somebody's owned their home for 10 years and we've seen such price appreciation. How do you see a lot of people that their insurance is not keeping up with the value of your house? Do you see that happening to folks?
Yeah, it's important to check in with your insurance agent and make sure that your coverages are where they are need to be, especially at your renewals. That's a good time to just call your insurance agent, say, hey, what is my replacement cost at right now? Do we need to increase that? Things of that nature.
Okay. Okay, cool. I'm looking here to see if there's, because when I first purchased a home, this was going way back in the day. I just thought, well, I just need insurance. They just told me to get insurance. And it's like, well, I got insurance, and I didn't understand actual cash value, any of that stuff. And actually, I learned the hard way on that, because you think, well, that's covered by insurance. And then it's like, nah, that you got actual cash value. We're only giving you, it was a $20,000 claim, and they gave me $8,000. And I'm like, oh, that would have been important to know before.
Right.
So that's something there. Anybody else in the chat? Anybody have any questions in the chat as far as insurance goes? I don't see anybody. Ben was there earlier. We have 14 people in the chat, which is I was kind of surprised at, but
yeah. No, with that, I would say, insurance is one of those things where you just don't want to deal with it when you're getting the policy, and you're buying a house, or you have some life change and you're trying to budget, and that's really all that you're worried about. But that's why it's super important to choose an agent that you feel comfortable with, that feels a little bit like family, that you trust and will take good care of you, because they're going to be the ones that are going to automatically put endorsements on there and check in with you, and make sure that you are understanding your deductibles, taking that extra minute to just really make sure you're listening and what you're getting into, because you're in a hurry. Everybody gets in a hurry sometimes. You just want to make sure you're taken care of. So it's important to choose the right agent,
because most people don't even know what they don't know when it comes to insurance. And I try to do videos, and sometimes if I talk about insurance in a video, it is for sure to tank.
So, it's not a fun topic. You see that at the sales meetings. I got people snoozing when I'm up there.
Yeah, it's like it's not. But I think it's a very important topic, because you tell folks, hey, you need to really surround yourself with a professional that's going to help guide you that way, because you're looking for the best policy at the best rate. Yes. You're not looking for the cheapest policy, because you got to be careful of what you get with that cheaper policy. You might be saving money, but you might not have the right type of coverage. So I think that's really important for people to
and you're not going to think about that until you're in an emergency, and oh my gosh, my prized engagement ring is gone, and what do I do? So it's important to have an agent that's asking those questions and knows what's important to you. Like, hey, I've got, this Harley that's been in the garage forever. This is my most important possession. We need to know that, so that we know, okay, we're going to have to add some extra coverage, and just make sure that no matter what the circumstances, when you're in that emergency, that's not something that you need to worry about.
Okay. I got a question for you. What happens, who's responsible if it's the neighbor's tree that falls on your car? Let's say you have a car parked out in the street, okay, and your tree falls on their car that's in the street. Who's responsible for that, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so that usually will fall on your car policy or your homeowner's insurance policy, because the neighbor really, at the end of the day, can't control when their tree is going to fall on somebody else's property. Now, if you've got a good neighbor, you can maybe talk to them about putting a claim in on their policy, but
gotcha.
Typically that would go on yours.
Okay. And then I had another question, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
You're good.
Okay, what about landlords? When you have rental property, what are some special concerns that if you own rental property that you need to be kind of concerned about in terms of insurance?
I mean, make sure that your tenants have renters insurance policies, make sure that they're up to date, that they're paying their premiums. Those are things that I would definitely make sure I knew as a landlord. Yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest thing. And then again, just reviewing your landlord policy, making sure you're keeping up to date with your coverages and upping those values when they need to be upped.
Gotcha. Now, how much is just on a comparison wise, how much would a renter's policy run, renter's insurance run for a single family home, ballpark figure wise?
Usually I would say I would say tops at like 1,500.
Okay.
So they're a good amount cheaper than a homeowner's policy.
Gotcha. Now, what about, we're here in Omaha, and what about when you have smaller, what about insurance on like, smaller communities that, like a Plattsmouth or Blair? Is there any kind of a discount, or is there more of a premium for out properties that are, or something like in Beaver Lake or something? I'm not sure if Beaver Lake has their own fire department, but does location to a fire station make any difference in terms of coverage?
Yeah, it's helpful to be closer to the fire station. I don't think the discount is as substantial. I'd have to get with Tara and Brett on that. I don't think it's as substantial as you would think, but it does play into the rates.
Okay. All right. Terrific. Is there, and I would say that you kind of talked about this earlier, going to an insurance broker versus just that way. Can you kind of explain how the insurance broker works, how that works in terms of when you go to a broker versus, like a company like State Farm and that sort of thing? Can you kind of explain that? No shade to State Farm or anything, but
no. Yeah. So the agents that are tied to one carrier, so like Allstate has their own, State Farm has their own. I mean, really all of them. If you go directly to their website, you're going to be using a captive agent. You're not always going to have one point of contact,
Gotcha.
Which is one of the downfalls to that. And then also they only can sell the one product, right? So if you go with them and then you get to a point where you have to file a claim, then your rates are probably going to increase, and then they would only be able to keep you with them, right? Whereas an independent broker, we have our personal agency, we have access to up to like 20 plus insurance carriers, I think was the last count. Okay. And so we are able to shop extensively. So if you file a claim with one carrier or you, within your 2 to 3 year period of being with them, you suddenly see a rate increase of 20+%. We're able then to shop you around and get ahead of that and call you and say, hey, we noticed at renewal you were up about 20%. Do you want us to take the opportunity to look at a different carrier for you? And then another thing that we've run into frequently lately, especially with homeowners insurance premiums going up a little bit higher, there have been circumstances where putting the homeowners insurance with this one carrier and then the auto over here has been beneficial, but you're still only going to be calling us when you need something.
Gotcha.
So that's been a benefit as well.
Okay. What about an umbrella policy? Is that good for folks to have?
Yes. Yeah, they are fantastic and they can be used in, several different instances. For example, me personally, when I went to, like I told you, I rewrote my policy this year. I was able to do lower coverage on my auto premium and save a little bit, and then get a umbrella policy that would kick in, and I got $1 million of coverage for that. And I still ended up way cheaper than I would have doing an auto policy with, the higher amount coverage.
Okay. How much, just out of curiosity, umbrella policies, what do those typically run, or what is somebody looking at in terms of something like that? If I don't know, it's going to vary per person, but is there kind of a ballpark figure type of thing?
Yeah, I would say a few $100s. They're really not too expensive.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. See on my list of questions here. What about a newer home versus an older home? Does anybody get is there any kind of a discount for a new construction versus existing? Do you see that at all?
Yeah. The newer the home, the lower the premium is going to be. They're usually a little bit cheaper. I mean, your siding's new, your roof is new. And so the insurance carriers are able to kind of assume that there's not going to be claims on it. One of the caveats to that maybe would be like zip code. If you're in a zip code that has been kind of flagged by the insurance carriers as having a lot of claims and a lot of weather patterns, that might not be as, significant of a decrease in premiums versus an older home, but it's all very circumstantial. But I would say if you're buying a newer home versus buying 100-year-old home, you're going to have lower premiums on the newer property.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I know you guys do this for folks, in terms of what other riders a person should have, but somebody who, maybe who doesn't tune into their insurance like they should, what's some riders that you think they should think about that they may not have thought about?
Yeah, so I would say the water backup, like we talked about, the service line coverage, and then full replacement cost on your contents. Okay. So you want your contents and like your TVs and your to be covered at 100%, taking that actual cash value coverage on those items. I mean, then you're getting paid out basically nothing for your contents. And when you run into a situation where your home gets completely burned down or hit by a tornado and it's been leveled, you want to make sure that you can put all your furniture and everything back in it.
Okay, so let's say I have I don't have the newest TV, but let's say my TV is 10 years old. Are you replacing it at that 10-year-old TV cost, or is it the modern day TV cost?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I would say the cost to replace it. So it would have to be a new TV of that size and quality.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Or maybe I should just bought a new TV then.
Right.
All right. Any other things that you can think of that we may not be aware of that you could pass along to folks, that any other kind of words of wisdom or anything like that?
Yeah, I would just say, it can be tempting to take a higher deductible or lower coverage to kind of save monthly. But with insurance, it's just really important to think long game and to think about how you would feel and how you would be responding in a total loss situation, because that's what your insurance is there for. It's for those total losses. The last thing you want to be worried about is if this is going to be covered at the right price, or if I'm even going to be able to afford my deductible to get the work going. So I would say if you can budget it in there. I know it's one of those frustrating costs that nobody wants to be spending money on monthly, me included. But it's really important to make sure that coverage is there. And then again, I'll get back on my soapbox. Just make sure that you're choosing an agent that you feel comfortable with, that feels like family, and that is going to look out for your best interest like you would. Gotcha.
Well, and if somebody wants to kind of have like a second opinion to their insurance, how would folks get a hold of you? I can share the website here. Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah, so we actually, that Get a Quote Now button is a fantastic tool that we have. It's our in-house tech piece. It's called Quotamation. Our CEO and our president of our company actually created it. Wow. And what it's done is it's taken what used to be like a 20 to 30-minute process of onboarding down to about 60 seconds. All you got to do is click that button, fill out some basic information, name, phone number, driver's license number, property address, and then birth date. It'll also have you auto select your vehicles and things like that. And then just click that. It will send us your information and a notification that you would like a quote. It'll give you some really rough initial numbers. That is not the final quote. Normally we can beat what pops up on that screen. But then we'll know to reach out to you, and one of our agents will reach out to you within 24 hours to gather any additional information they need and complete your final quote for you.
Okay.
It's a good tool.
And that's NR Insurance, nrinsure.com. Is that correct? Is that the?
Yes.
nrinsure.com. Okay, terrific. Okay, excellent. Now, if somebody's, goes under contract, today to buy a home, how soon should they contact you for insurance? How quickly should folks do that?
So I would say within that first week of getting under contract, a lot of lenders will need that information pretty early on just so that they can get their numbers going and get all their final data complete. So I would say within your first 3 to 4 days of writing and getting an accepted contract, I would reach out to somebody so we can get the process going.
And you could do that clue report then and kind of check to make sure there's no frequent claims with that property and any kind of snakes in the wood pile, that sort of thing, correct?
Yep, that's something we'll do while we're quoting you.
Excellent. Okay, terrific. Well, I think we've ran through all the questions that I had, and if
I mean, that's probably all the insurance anybody can handle.
I really appreciate you being on the live stream today. We've had some people, we've had, like, according to StreamYard, we got 11 people watching, so that I was kind of nervous about that. But hopefully, if you like the stream, be sure to hit the thumbs up. And if you need any help with insurance, reach out to Chelsae. And then, Chelsae, I really appreciate being on the stream today. If we have no other questions, then I'm going to let you go. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and it's been fun.
All right. Thanks again, Chelsae. You take it easy.
You too.
You bet. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. And I appreciate everybody tuning into the stream today. Had a good time. So appreciate Chelsae being on the program. And you guys make it a great day. And you got a video coming out Thursday. So let me know how you like the stream in the comment section. So thanks again, and you make it a great day.